Welcome to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast with Darren Mitchell. If you're a sales leader looking to take your leadership to a whole new level, then this is the podcast for you. We'll be exploring tips, techniques, and strategies to help you take your leadership to the exceptional level and allow you to enjoy more money, more meaning, and better sales results. Welcome back to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast, and welcome to a very dear friend of mine that it's a long time between drinks, Jeff. It's been we're just talking before we press record. December 2024 was when we first started working together, and it's a long time. We're now February 2026 as we are recording this, but if we're listening to this now, you're probably listening to now in late March, early April. Mr. Jeff Bajorek, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Darren, for having me. And I mean, given where I am in the world, I could go get a drink right now. I don't know if it's appropriate for you to have a drink right now where you are in the world, but it's evening where I am, so I'll just stick to my water. But anyway, thank you for having me, and it's really good to reconnect. I want to say this about you. You were, part of the. I think we kind of, in a tongue-in-cheek way, referred to ourselves as the Avengers coming together for that. We all kind of helicopter parachuted into Vegas for that event in 2024. But you were one of the people that I did not get to spend as much time with as I wanted to, because some of it was our varying degrees of jet lag from coming from different parts of the world, but also the amount of preparation and stuff that we had to do. And we partnered up with, I think, people from, we were working on similar groups together in this worldwide audience. So I got to sit near you at dinner on the last night. And
That's
I
it.
remember we chatted a little bit, but that was about the extent of our exposure, which was a bummer for me. I hope we get to do it again.
We will, and I'm thinking we should be able to get together as the group of Avengers somewhere else in the world this year. Let's just hope that comes off. But talking about that dinner,
Have to be Vegas?
Well,
Does it have to be Vegas?
well, actually, I thought we were going to be potentially going to Thailand or the UK, but things didn't quite eventuate. But we are back. Something will happen, mate. Just talking about that dinner, and we'll get into what you do, and we'll jump into the podcast in a second. I often talk that place was it called Salt?
Salt Bay. Yeah, that was the Salt Bay restaurant. I don't know if it was called Salt Bay or if it was just called Salt
Yeah,
but it was, yeah, it was, I enjoyed it. I thought it was
it
fun.
was magnificent. I was telling a few people about the theatrics when they brought out the steaks and they cut it all up, and there was
Yeah.
almost like pyrotechnic smoke going everywhere. And I don't know about you, but I took a photograph of the menu with the prices in US dollars, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, do people pay this price for food?
They do, believe it or not. What's always interested me and been so intriguing to me about Vegas, particularly, is you get some people there who are there specifically to spend money. And if you are looking to spend money, Vegas has got anything you want, right?
Mm,
But particularly at the restaurants, and you see these steaks for, wasn't there a steak there for like $1,000 or something? Like
yes,
it was
yes.
just totally off the map. But some of the like really rare like Scotch whiskeys or tequila and things too, where it's like $2,000 a shot. I'm
Mm,
like, come on. Like that's you're not drinking it for the rarity or the caliber of it. You're just drinking it for the story at that point. It's
absolutely.
and you know what? At the end of the day, I've got empathy for that, because what do we have at the end of our lives other than a bunch of stories? Um, I don't know. I think my kids would probably appreciate it if I told $2,000 stories in different ways.
And then, mate, coming from Australia, where at the time the Australian dollar to the US equivalent was we'd literally have to double that price. So that's a
Oh,
$4,000 shot of whiskey or a $2,000 steak. And you're thinking, yeah, oh, there's
yeah.
probably a bit more I could spend the $2,000 on that probably gives me a bit more than just a meal.
Well, what I will say to the credit that Tony and Alan and everybody, Christo at Growth Matters, bringing
Yeah.
us all together. But they created an environment where, I don't know, there were 9 or 10 of us, I think, at
Mm.
that table. Everything was family style. We just made it family style. And I don't
Yeah.
think none of it felt uncomfortable at all, even though we'd known each other for all of 72 hours. It was like, of course. Hell, can I try a little bit? I know it's on your plate. Can I just reach across and grab a little bit of it?
That's
Right. Like it's
right.
just this really friendly vibe. And I think when you get the right people together,
Mm.
and it's a very difficult selection process, but when you get the right people together, you can have a lot of fun, you can learn a lot. And I'll never forget that weekend,
No.
or the week, really. I mean, we got in, I guess maybe it was more than 72 hours, but we
Yeah.
came in on that Friday and we went and toured the Grand Canyon and went to a show and, did all kinds of stuff, had a lot of fun. And then also got a lot of work done to be able to do that project. We've got
Mate,
a
I
lot to
don't know
be
about
proud of for
you.
that week.
Yeah, it was a great experience, and I still talk about that. Not the fact that went to Vegas, but that was really cool. But the fact that
Mhm.
we got to add a huge amount of value to a global organization, but also I guess the friendships and the relationships were built out of that just from the Growth Matters International team. You and I are
Mhm.
talking today where it's 16 months away or whatever, where it was a little bit less than that. But it feels like yesterday that we're
Mhm.
just talking. And I think it's a mark of the environment that you can create in a sales team whereby, and you think about this with customers as well, that if you treat people like humans and treat people like family, there's amazing things that can happen. And you may not see each other for a little bit of time, but when you get back together, it's almost like it's just compressed and we're just continuing the conversation.
Yeah, and I think we talk about this a lot, particularly when young men and women go into the armed forces and they have experiences together. And those are not often the right kind of experience or the
Mm,
best kind of experiences, right? We'd like to, but like to use that as an example, we came together, we had an objective. It wasn't wasn't an easy mission. Right? Probably wasn't the most difficult test of our relative careers, but like we had our work cut out for us. That's
yeah.
very, very simple to say. And we bonded around the experience. We bonded around the mission. We bonded around the purpose that
Mm,
was there. And I think, that kind of a crucible is where these relationships are formed. The organizations will bring someone like you in, they'll bring someone like me in, and do a workshop or something, or they'll go to a ropes course or an escape room or something and try to bring the best out in each other. But that
yeah,
was like our that was like our PhD level escape room, I guess. We had to put the pieces together and solve that puzzle. And
it
but that
was.
experience is that's the tie that binds us all, and it always will be.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it was a great experience. You talk about, the hard work. There was a lot, it felt like literally drinking out of a fire hose for a week, right? And
Yeah.
I'm not sure about you, but I recall on the third day, I don't know whether it was the travel or, I was just in a relaxed environment. I started to lose my voice.
Hmm.
So I'm like a 13, 14-year-old going through puberty where the voice is breaking, standing on stage, and all I could do was what you're doing right now is absolutely just pissing myself. And I had
Yeah.
all the people in the room trying to go and get some elixir for him, get some lemon and honey. And but it was a great experience, and we'll continue to be connected over that. Um,
Yeah.
we're not going to talk about Vegas, although we could probably spend an hour talking about Vegas. We want to talk about sales and sales leadership. So, for the listeners'
Hmm.
benefit, you've been in sales and sales leadership for a long time, since 2015. You've been the founder and principal of. Now, depending on how you say this, it's sometimes people say Parabola Consulting.
Hmm.
Some say Parabola, depending on which side of the world you live. But Parabola Consulting LLC. But you've been in sales a long time, Jeff, and you're also sharing with me that you've done probably over 1,000 podcast episodes as both a guest and as a host. Before we jump into some of the nuances of sales and sales leadership as you're sort of forming an approach to market today, just give us a bit of the background on how you jumped into sales and what kind of led you to doing the work that you do today.
So I started selling like what I find most people do is they get into it reluctantly, accidentally, or a combination of the two. And I started my career in athletic medicine. I got a degree in sports medicine. I was a certified athletic trainer. I got the what I felt was the best job I could have possibly gotten coming right out of university. Worked for a major hospital system in Detroit. We had the contracts for the pro teams that were here. I saw Hall of Fame athletes walk in and out of my office on a regular basis, right? It was
Wow.
so cool being 21 years old, right? And I did that for about 3 years, was contracted to a local high school to take care of their athletes, and then worked in a physical therapy clinic. Kind of had a split shift, living the dream. And then after a couple of years, I said, I didn't like this split shift. I wanted to come inside the clinic full time, do some more research. I had a paper that was, set to be published at that time, has since been published. I was a tertiary author, right? It was not, I didn't wasn't the lead, investigator or anything, but I wanted to do more like that, and I
Mhm.
wanted some regularity in my schedule, and so I quit my job. And it was interesting because of that particular dynamic. I knew I wasn't going to go back to the school in the fall, but I had commitments over the summer. And so, I had hockey players that I developed training programs for, summer training and stuff. Anyway, I don't want to belabor that point, but there was reason for me to give more than 2 weeks notice is
Right.
why that's important. And so, when my resignation was announced at the staff meeting the next day, um, a woman, her name was Rose Snyder, and Rose passed within the last couple of years. I was sad to see her go, but I blame my sales career, or credit my sales career to her, because and she was several years my senior, very established, very good network, just a true professional, so good at what she did. And she looked at me and she says, "Why don't you try selling?" And I looked at her, and then I looked behind me to make sure that she wasn't talking to somebody else. And I said, I don't know if you, do you know me? Have we not been working together like for the last 3 years? And she says, listen, what else are you going to do? I got you an interview. Dust off your resume and take it. I said, okay. So I dusted off my resume, submitted it to whoever she told me to submit it to, went through this interview process over a couple of months over the summer. We could take our time because I, didn't have
Yeah.
anything imminent. And ultimately, I got this job. And when I got the offer, I remember where I was sitting. It was my then girlfriend, now my wife, her apartment. I took the call, and the guy that hired me, his name was Ken, and he said, I'd like to offer you this job. And I said, Ken, are you sure? I said, I don't know anything about business. I said, look, I know I'm a hard worker, and I'm selling in the orthopedic market, which is very much just dovetails with what I was doing. So
Yeah.
basically, the people I was working with would become my customers. And I said, I don't know anything about business, though. Are you sure you want to do this? And he said, Jeff, here's the thing. I know a couple things about you. One, I know you're a hard worker. I know you're smart. I know you speak the language.
Mm.
And from everybody I've talked to, you're a really good person. It's like, that's all really good stuff. And I will tell you this too. The people I've talked to who would be your customers if you took this job, they told me to hire you in a heartbeat. That that's enough for me because I can teach you the rest.
Yeah.
I can teach you the sales cycle. I can teach you the products. I can teach you all the stuff about business that you need to know. I said, well, okay. And so I took the job, and I took the job in the back of my head, knowing that if I did this for a year and I hated it, then I'd go back to clinical medicine because I was good
Yeah,
at it.
sure.
And there was, 3 or 4 other hospital systems in town that would hire me
Mm.
in a heartbeat. Right. So, I took it, and that was 21 years ago.
And
So
you
here
haven't
I
left.
am. Um, but what was interesting, and I think the thing that leads to me doing what I'm doing right now, um, Ken told me he could train me. And what he meant, and actually what I'm paraphrasing when I said it, he said, we can teach you that stuff. And Ken had a partner at the time. And when I went for my first day, get my orientation and my sample kit and all my glossy, shiny, brochures, right? Because I'm going to be making office calls. And he said, I kind of run the business. My partner handles the management of the reps. So
Hmm.
um, he's going to train you. Tom, I think was his name. Never met Tom because the next day, Tom and Ken's business dissolved. And so not only did he leave, and I shouldn't say this, I should say that differently. The business didn't dissolve, the partnership dissolved.
Right.
And so Tom left the business, Ken kept the business and is
Yeah.
thriving. He's done a wonderful job, a really thriving company. But, all of a sudden, the guy who was going to trade me wasn't there. And the guy who admittedly said, I'm not really that good at the training part. It's just my job to run the business. I got my sample bag and it was kind of like pat on the behind, go get him,
Off you
kid.
go, Jeff.
And so I have spoken with Ken actually quite recently. I've got so much respect for him, and we've got a really good relationship. He's actually hired me to do some work with his teams in the past couple of years. But the environment that I was thrown into was very different than the one I thought I was going into.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until about a year later. So I told you I could do this for a year, and if I hate it, I'm gonna move on. I was
Yeah.
pretty close to moving on. And then that next summer, someone joined our organization who had 18, 19 years experience running very large orthopedic organizations, was a great seller, also knew what it meant to mentor and train other reps because he had done it.
Mm.
And he showed up and joined the organization with a new line of product. And we had a conversation not long after we met. He said, Jeff, what I hear is you've got a great territory in Detroit. You've got great access because customers love you, but you're a little lost when it comes to the selling part. I said, yeah, that's a pretty fair statement. He
Yeah.
says, well, here's the thing. I'm new in town, but I've been doing this at a high level for 20 years. So you have access, but don't know how to sell. I know how to sell, but I don't have access. That might be good. And I can spare you all the jokes that our wives made about how much time we were spending together. I can spare you lots of stories. He's still a very good friend of mine today. I won't name him because he
Mm.
never came on my podcast, and I have always referred to him as he who shall not be named.
Aha.
I can't name him out loud, but still one of my close friends today, and that became the base for my upbringing in the sales profession. And it informs so much of my approach to how I work with teams today because you cannot replace that time in the car together. You cannot replace the time in the sales calls together. You cannot
Mm.
replace I like to joke and say that I learned how to sell by drinking beer because we would meet first thing in the morning. We would meet at some coffee shop or something, grab something and go. He'd hop in my car, I'd hop in his.
Yeah.
And then we'd make sales calls. And at the end of the day, we'd end up at some bar and have a drink or two and say, okay, we'd go through a call at a time, Darren.
Hmm.
Okay,
Hmm.
first call of the morning, 7:30 a.m. What happened? What didn't happen?
Mm.
What needs to happen? How are you going to make that happen? Did you notice what he did when you said that? Okay, don't say that anymore. Did you notice what he did when I said this?
Yeah.
Yes, say more of that. Like this selling is an apprenticeship. It's a craft.
Mm.
It's not something you can, as much as we try, it's not something you can just pick up on by reading a book or listening to a podcast or watching a YouTube video. Those are great ways to stimulate the thought to then go put
Yeah.
it into practice and fail
Yeah.
so you know
Yeah.
how to succeed.
Well, it's almost the difference between, well, there's a couple of things there. One is there's this almost like a sliding doors moment. So, what were the odds that he came into your environment just at the time
Oh,
when it made me thinking, maybe this is not for me, and move forward. If he hadn't have come in, you might be doing something completely different, and us not having this conversation today.
hmm.
But getting access, and they often say that the when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And the odds of him coming in with that level of experience and you then having access to a customer base that really liked you because you build up that familiarity and that
Hmm.
level of trust with them. He was then coming in to help you with the skill set of selling, but you already had the foundations of the relationships.
Hmm.
And together, you obviously created some magic, for want of a better term, moving forward, which was
Yeah.
really cool.
It
Really
was
cool.
fun. It was fun. Some of the longest days I've ever worked, some of the, I mean, gosh, Darren, so many stories I could share with you, but I remember going to labs. You know, we were selling to surgeons, so there'd be labs for practice
Yeah.
and education and stuff like that, and we'd have to travel to do this stuff and trade shows, be first ones to the booth in the morning, last ones up at night. Like, I mean, it
Mm.
just ridiculous stories, but all of that stuff, in a way, it's all part of that apprenticeship. You
Yeah.
learn to go the extra mile when you need to. You learn to stay away from stuff when you shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah.
It's I'm I'm glad I don't do it anymore because I'm 20 years older than I was when I did that the first time. But it just I think back at to those times, and it was maybe 3 or 4 months into, our friendship, our relationship, our mentor student relationship, when I realized that I wanted to do that for other people.
Mm.
There's a world that opened up for me that I did not see as a possibility, that um all of a sudden became my reality.
Mm.
And the fundamental shift behind that, and I say, as an athletic trainer, I came out of my college, with my degree, and I think I was making $15.12 an hour, and I was ecstatic because that was
Yeah.
near the top of the pay scale for a new grad like myself.
Yeah.
I've had months, Darren, I've had weekends sometimes where I've made my entire first year professional salary in an event.
Yeah.
And it's like, whoa, like that's
Mm.
that's life changing. It's not just about stacking cash somewhere. It's just like you think about that disparity in where you feel your potential is
Mm.
versus where it ends up. And that has connected in my core in a way that I was a guy who didn't think that was even possible. I thought Rose was talking to someone behind me. And now all of a sudden it's like, okay, someone's doing this for me. I have to pay this back to
Yeah.
somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I was going to ask you through that, Jeff, the philosophy that you formed through that, because you mentioned there's a theme that's through this, which is all about service and paying it forward and helping others become better and leaving almost like a legacy for the people that come behind
Hmm.
you. And I often say to sales teams, which they sometimes laugh at, but I say that sales is the ultimate form of service and it's not about you. So you're always planting seeds. And if you're in sales for what you can get, you might have some short-term success, quote unquote, but you won't have any long-term meaning. And certainly people won't necessarily be thinking of you top of mind when they're thinking about who in the marketplace do I know who has credibility that might be able to solve a problem, right? But it's the
Yeah.
ones that can leave people with that impression that you're there to serve them, you're there to solve problems, you still have the difficult conversations, but you're truly there to help are the ones that ultimately become successful. And even in 2026, and I love your thoughts on this, there are a lot of organizations out there that are still so self-focused because they've got to hit a target, hit a metric. They've lost the art of, you know what, we're here to serve our customers, but we're not here to flog the product to our customers. We're here to solve problems for our customers. And it's the
Hmm.
organizations that can do that really well are the ones that are going to separate themselves, even in the world of AI, because people still want to do that have that human connection, human interaction.
It's interesting what you say about AI. I believe that the cost of knowledge is going to zero very quickly, but the value of expertise is going through the roof.
Mm,
Um, So the human element there, there's always some kind of context you need to provide to the raw data. As much as they're getting better at an alarming rate, and as much as I love to use the large language models, it's still really it's aggregated mediocrity. It's still taking the sum total of everything and giving you average of what it expects the average person to say.
yeah.
And so that's really good in a lot of ways, but it also still requires some expertise and will always require some kind of human element
Mm,
to really make a connection, because people buy that connection.
yeah.
They buy based on how much they trust you to be able to contextualize their problem and come up with the appropriate solution for them,
Mm,
not just a blanket solution for everybody. Um, and yeah, we're in a profit first world. We're in a capitalistic society. It's a capitalized globe. I don't care if you live in a
Mm.
socialized or, even a communist country for that matter. Like
Yeah.
the way the world works is we're going to try to figure out what we need and we're going to take as much of it as we can before we get caught.
Yeah.
It's kind of the game.
Yeah.
And so it's really easy when you reduce it to the math, when you reduce it to the numbers, when you reduce it to just the raw,
Mm.
X's and O's of it. But the raw X's and O's are rarely what makes people buy. And so it's tougher than ever. You're pulled in multiple directions. Well, okay, am I drawn toward profit and loss, or am I drawn toward making a connection, building trust, and showing that I have a solution to someone or for someone that no one else does?
Mm.
And what you mentioned earlier, I think is important. You can, on a short-term basis, yeah, you can make a lot of sales. You know what's really fun? It's getting the second call. It's almost as fun as getting the third call,
Yeah.
which is almost as fun as getting the call from someone else you've never talked to because the person you've been working with for a while told them that they couldn't talk to anybody else until they talked to you.
Yeah.
And so then it's like, okay, the first one's a heavy lift. I'm 21 years older than I was when I started selling. I'm not interested in lifting things as heavy as it used to be. I'd like it to get a little easier. Hopefully, I'm not making it so hard on myself all the
Yeah.
time. And um, I, it is selling is service. And I think if there's a snide remark about the money that gets made when you sell, I think it's because most people don't actually recognize the value of the problems they solve.
Yeah.
You don't have to be so crass as to pick on the money someone's making.
Mm.
Like, why don't you just wrap your brain around the fact that there's a problem that's worth a lot of money to solve
That's it.
and go do more of that? It's a lot of fun.
Well, it is, and some might, and people might be listening to this and thinking, well, hang on, isn't sales about hitting the numbers, making profit, driving up customer satisfaction, all that? Yeah, that's part of it. But you mentioned it before. It's about, well, how do we get the second call, the third call, the fourth call? How do we get the referrals flowing in? And you can't necessarily build a sustainable business purely based on referrals, and we get that, right? But that certainly plays a part. But in the work that you do now and talking with organizations, how do you grapple with, I guess, the push-pull of sales leaders, maybe sales directors, having to appease their superiors because we've got to hit a number, maintain margin, with maybe as the medium to longer term game of creating customer value, really understanding why customers buy so that we are positioning ourselves not just for the first sale, but literally for a sale in 12 or 24 months or even 5 years' time.
The first thing I do is kind of call a timeout mentally and encourage them to do the same. It's like, okay, let's just get everything out here on the table, right? Let's pause the world around us for a while.
Yeah.
You've got pressure coming from up top. They have pressure coming from atop them, and Wall Street is expecting a report in at the end of the quarter.
Mm,
That's there. It's not going away.
mm,
It only goes away when you go away and you find a company that doesn't have to report to Wall Street on a quarterly basis, or whatever stock market
yeah.
that's prevalent where you sell. So publicly held companies have their own issues. Privately held companies doesn't happen as often, but it really depends on how big of the company you work for. But that pressure from up top is coming. Um, and so when all you're trying to do, and I think most of the people we serve, Darren, you and I, most of those people are just looking for relief. They're
Mm,
looking to feel better. They're looking to put their feet up at some point and just take a deep breath, right? Because the pressure is crushing.
mm,
So we have to acknowledge that that pressure is there. Otherwise, we'll never get anything done. But then we start to say, okay, now that we realize that's there, and we realize that that is often the impetus for what I'll call, between you and me and anybody who's listening right now, what we'll just call it, quote, bad behavior. The
yeah.
things that we know that we could do better, but we just can't in the moment.
Mm,
When we pause everything around us, we can actually analyze that a little bit. And we say, okay, does this does this work that we're doing right now, Does it make it easier to do this work again later? No, it doesn't. Why? Well, because we're discounting at the last minute to get this
Mm,
stuff done, which means we're always fighting. Once you lower prices, it's really hard to raise them, right? And because we're in a hurry, we're pressuring people, we're pressuring our reps. The reps feel this, they're run down, and you don't want to replace a rep. And so now all of a sudden you have this tension, this animosity between the front lines and their managers. They don't understand us. Why do they talk to me one way at the beginning of the month, talk to me differently at the end of the month, right? We're not, most leaders are not proud of the work they feel like they
mm,
have to do. But if we can, again, pause the world around them for a second, just so we can talk.
mm,
Now it's like, okay, what does current state look like? What does future, or what does ideal state look like? And what are little things that we could maybe do with a long-term viewpoint? So maybe it doesn't, maybe we can't implement this stuff first, in this quarter or this month, maybe not even next quarter, but if we start planting these seeds now, 2 or 3 quarters from now, we'll start to see some results.
mm.
And I think that's slowing down of the world around us. I think that the frontline manager, frontline and even second line managers, those are the toughest organization, toughest jobs in the sales organization because you're
Yeah,
getting it from every direction.
totally.
No one's ever happy with you. And you know that the expectations from above you are sometimes completely opposed to the needs of the people that you serve,
Yeah.
that work for you. And it is such a bad spot to be in. It's a tough spot to be in. So it's, I think, pausing, telling the truth, and then slowing down the pace of expected results so that they can, if you can sell them on the long game,
Mm,
right? And I had one client I was working with that, it's like I'd coach him through deals, and there would there was never a really solid business case. It was, hey, we have a really cool product. And it was this really unique product in the market,
yeah.
and it was really cool, really fun to talk about. Everybody wants to talk about it, and then all of a sudden, because the manager needs a forecast, the rep puts a number on it, and all of a sudden we got to go get it. We never even thought about the customer and if they had a use for it. They just thought it was really cool, so it ended up in the
Well, it's not
pipeline.
about the customer, Jeff. Come on.
But and so it's like, well, wait a second. But then we get stuck in this cycle, and every month it's which one of these deals are we going to find a way to close?
Yeah.
And it's how much profit are we leaving on the table?
Mm,
If we just took a longer term viewpoint of it and started making incremental changes, okay, great. Can't do anything about the deals that are going to close this quarter and next quarter, but these new deals that we're opening, we're starting with questions about problems that we can solve.
yeah.
Starting questions around frustrations that they have with their current solution. And yeah, our product's really cool, but what if they wanted it before they even, what if they wanted something before they even knew how cool it was?
Mm,
And how much more momentum would you have going in? And then you had at least the cool factor to get the CFO who signs the check. Cool factor for her. So she sees, oh, yeah, I can see some utility in this, but
mm.
okay, what's it really going to mean for us? Well, as a matter of fact, we've built this business case that shows that your return on investment in the first quarter of this is going to be 35 times. It's criminal that I'm selling it to you for as low as I am, but I'm happy with it if you are. And I'd love it if you told a friend.
Yeah. And look, there's nothing wrong with that, right? There's nothing wrong with that at all in terms of you putting it on the table. But what you've done is you've created a level of credibility where you've actually not led with your product. You've actually led with a business challenge or a business problem, which is getting into the psychology as to why your customers buy in the first place. Because and I'm be interested in this from you. I'm at pains to explain to sales teams and organizations that, contrary to what you probably think, your customers are not waking up every single day just thinking and wishing they can go and buy your product. You're probably the last thing they're thinking about.
If you're that lucky to be the last thing that they're thinking about at all,
Yes,
nobody loves your product more than nobody loves a product like the person who sells it.
that's it.
And it's fine. I think about it this way. I think that problem-oriented conversations lead to solutions-oriented conversations, which lead to sales conversations.
Hmm.
But most salespeople jump right into sales conversations. So there's no context for whether or not there's a problem or if it's the one that they want to solve right now,
Totally.
if this is the solution, right? And so we wonder why nobody calls us back. We wonder why cold call pickups and email response rates and all the data is down. It's like, well, I don't know. Ask that person to go on a date with you before you ask them to spend the rest of their life with you, right? Like, what are we jumping right into? Why are we assuming that they're ready to move forward with
Yeah.
something? We don't know. We don't need a sales pitch.
Yeah.
Hey, Darren, I've noticed that um, a lot of sales leaders are concerned about their team's abilities to create new opportunities. Is that something that maybe you're concerned with, or have you got that
Mm.
figured out? That's a great opener to a conversation.
Yeah.
No, because if you do have it worked out, I want to hear about it. Right. So
Yes.
even if this is not going to lead to a sale, I'm happy to learn from you. And I'm sure you're probably happy because you're among the few who have that figured out. You're
Mm.
probably happy to crow about that a little bit. Take your wins. Let's talk about that. I'm excited to share that conversation with you.
Mm.
Um, if that is something you're concerned about, now what I've done is created some context around the conversation I'd like to have with you, but I'm moving at your pace.
Mm.
So, Darren, that is a concern for you. Okay, I'm just curious. What have you tried? What's worked for you? What didn't work as well as you thought it might? Oh, we did this. We did this. We did this. Oh, okay. Why don't you think that worked? Probably not your effort.
Yeah.
Probably not your product. I look at the logo on your business card. I called you on purpose. I know you have something worth selling. I'm actually a little bit surprised. Well, maybe not a whole lot surprised, but I'm a little bit surprised that you're having trouble keeping pipeline, in a good spot. Oh, we tried this. We tried this. We tried this. Oh, okay. Huh. What I've noticed is that other people in your situation have made a couple of changes that have addressed this issue. Can I share some success stories with you?
Mm.
Yeah. Okay. Well, here's what they did. Well, how'd they do that? Well, I'm glad you asked, right? But now we've built credibility. It's something worth talking about. I've demonstrated that I'm someone worth talking to. And we're talking about real things. And I may give you some free advice, or I may give you a free demo or a free trial of my product or my service. I may have done some
Yeah.
things to say, hey, look, just give this a shot. I'm
Mm.
trying to help you because I've helped people like you before, and I know I can. But
Mm.
I'm not here to twist your arm. I'm just here to maybe nudge you in this direction that this might help you when the time is right.
Mm.
And if you can do enough of that, you will never have a pipeline problem.
No, and that's the whole thing. It's very buyer centric. It's very customer centric because you're starting with the problem, and you might bring insights. You've obviously got to do your targeting as well and know your
Sure.
marketplace. But what's interesting about that is it's only once you've gone through those initial stages would you even think about introducing a service or a product or something that might be related to a solution to the problem. Because you've
Mhm.
got to build up that is this something that the customer recognizes as a problem or a challenge? Is it something that they want to solve? Is it something they need to solve? And what have they done so far to do that? And is it working? If it's working perfectly, as you rightly said, hey, can you share that with me? Because I talk to a lot of organizations and I reckon what you've done, that's gold. Is it okay if I use that?
Yeah. I'll give you credit. And it's okay if I use that. And okay, great. And okay, if I find someone who could really use this kind of expertise, can I connect you with them?
Mm.
Like, I'm not here to make sales. I'm here to solve problems. And I know if I solve enough problems, I'm going to make a lot of sales. But primarily, I need to solve problems, and that might require, or that mission might be best served by community or by connecting you with someone that I know you could help.
Yes.
And again, it's selling a service.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think what I learned very early in my career. I was listening to Brian Tracy, The Psychology of Selling, on a CD in my car. Actually, I don't even know if it was in my car. It might have been connected to a cassette player that went into the deck with the little converter thing. Like this, how long ago this was. There's people listening to this podcast don't know what a cassette tape is, but um, I remember Brian Tracy saying that a sale is nothing more than a transfer of enthusiasm from one party to another. And I started thinking about that, and I said, well, if that's true, then most sales aren't even made uh, with any dollar amount, with any currency exchange at all. If I'm
Mm,
just transferring an idea, if I tell you to go see the new Avengers movie, right, and you go do it, I made a sales call and I made a sale because you went and
that's
saw it.
it.
You gave your money to somebody else at that
Hmm.
point, even when
Hmm.
we think about it that way. But now you're my customer because I made a sale.
Yeah.
And so, anytime I ask you to do something that you wouldn't have done without me asking, then that's a sales call. And when you do it, you're my customer. And that means that anybody out there, anybody we run into on any given day, at any time, in any place, could be our customer.
Yeah.
What if we treated everybody that we ran into at any given day like they could be our best customer? The world becomes a fundamentally different place at that time.
100%.
And it like let's not put I mean, there's a little bit of rose-colored glasses phenomenon going on there. Let's not make it too rosy. I'm not saying we'd all agree on everything, but even when we disagreed, we would be respectful about it. We would listen
Mm,
more, we would have more empathy, and we could actually solve some of the problems together that we fail to because we're leading with an idea and a concept of service, which is sales, instead of a self-interest, which is what's in it for me.
correct.
So when what's in it for you is helping the people around you, that's a really good place to be, personally, professionally.
Well, and when you look at the best salespeople in around the world, irrespective of the industry, that's what they do well. They do it really well because they've got a reputation that they are a trusted advisor that customers keep coming back to them because of the value they create. And yes, they do get compensated. Yes, they do get well paid and all that sort of stuff. But people are more than happy for that to happen because they've delivered tangible value that's been customized specifically to the problem that a customer is actually experiencing, not trying to retrofit a product into a perceived need and then do the push into that so they can get their commission check. Right? There's nothing worse than commission breath.
Just jam it in there. Just,
It's
this is
just,
gonna work. Yeah.
well, it's insane. And particularly today, we know that customers are more educated than they ever have been in the history of mankind. So I was talking to somebody last night and he was saying that he was wanting to purchase an AI piece of technology and he'd done all this research and had made the decision to go with his organization. And a step in the sales process was to then talk to a representative of that organization. And it happened to be the founder of the organization. Well, here's the thing. The founder was following a sales process and not paying attention as to where the customer was in the buying process. So guess what happened? There was no transaction.
Showed up. I mean, that's a perfect scenario. So this person showed up ready to buy with their wallet in their hand and their credit card out, and the seller got in the way.
Correct.
Well, the good news is there's plenty of work for guys like you and me to do.
Well, that's it's music to my ears because I mean, oh man, just don't go there. And that's the thing, right? And you mentioned it before we press record. Understanding and helping sales organization understand why their customers buy. Now, in your business, you would have seen the work you do with clients, and I've certainly done it in mine, is when we don't get the deal. We're very good at doing a forensic loss review, right? We didn't win that
Hmm.
tender. Let's do a SWOT analysis in terms of an investigation, do the post-mortem.
Hmm.
But I often ask organizations, how often do you do a detailed forensic review as to why you won the deal, right? What was it about your solution? What was it about the people? What was it about the strategy that won the deal? Because that can give you so much information that you can leverage and implement into your methodology to go to marketplace.
Success is a terrible teacher unless you sit down specifically to try to learn from it.
Mm,
And the post-mortem, I came from the medical world, in orthopedic surgery, and the last Wednesday of every month, it was grand rounds, and it was morbidity and mortality. And I knew as a rep that I was welcome at grand rounds. I knew as a rep I was not welcome the fourth Wednesday of the month, right?
yeah.
That's where we're talking about where we fell short.
Mm,
And so We know why we need to learn from failure. We like to take it for granted that we're perfect when we won, which is why we just need to be more perfect all the time, right? Or perfect more often. But I think, and this is what I'm doing with my business right now. I work with VPs of sales to decode why their best salespeople are so good and why their best customers buy from them.
Mm,
And then I distill those behaviors for them so that they can put it into repeatable actions that they can then train new reps up to get them onboarded faster, to coach reps up to, and have this common standard
mm,
that we understand. I call it what good looks like here, because
yeah.
it's different in this organization than it is in that one. And unless we're willing to get a little uncomfortable, get a little vulnerable, and answer questions a couple of levels deeper than we have in the past, we're not going to, well, I'm not going to say we're not going to do anything. It's going to make it much more difficult to find sustained success.
Mm,
And every sales leader that wants to get out of that quarter end push that makes me feel like garbage to the people I report to and the people report to me, well, if we know what good looks like here, we can sustain that flywheel
yeah.
and not necessarily have an easier time hitting targets, because you know what, that just means they're going to raise the targets. But we know what it's going to take to get those targets, and we can go to
Yeah.
higher heights.
Yeah.
And it's just work that this, this profession is so hard that when we're finally doing something right, I just like to call it a day. It's like, okay, great, I did. That's the relief I'm looking for. Success is a tough thing to study, and
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I'm helping people do.
And I love the fact you mentioned that the whole approach is what looks good here,
Hmm.
because you can't take a cookie cutter approach to everything. So what works in organization A is not necessarily going to work in organization B. So being it customized, because there might be some nuances in a particular organization that really separates them from their competition, and you've got to be able to hold on to that and really instill that into the daily disciplines and behaviors that people demonstrate.
It taking well that my approach of what good looks like here was born out of a failure of mine, a significant failure of mine. I had a client that liked my work and asked me to come on and run their sales team. And two of the reasons that I was hired was because I knew what good looked like and I was willing to have tough conversations. That's why I
Yeah.
was hired. And why I was fired, because I knew what good looked like and I was having tough conversations. And with a lot of time and a lot of ability to reflect and a lot of, I mean, ooh, there were some low lows. But with reflection, when I think about it, I came into an organization that was doing a lot of things really well,
Mm,
but my lens was through the things where I knew they were falling short, and what I knew, like I was going to build a world-class sales machine.
yeah.
And this is where our gaps are, and we're just going to pour it on. But I never won the trust, the hearts, the minds, the emotions of the team that was already doing some things good, and or some good things. And the things that they were doing, I didn't need to change that. I didn't even need to threaten to change that. And even though I myself wasn't threatening a lot of those things, I did not give the impression that I was willing to listen.
Yeah. Okay.
And so the key to knowing what good looks like here is looking around and actually listening and paying
Mm,
attention. And Darren, I'm going to go back to this. It's getting in the car and riding with your reps.
yeah.
It's having a beer or an iced tea or whatever it is that that you have at the end of the day, a glass of water, to
Mm,
just sit back and think about all the good things and start there,
yeah.
and then say, okay, those are all good, but are they enough to get to the goal where we want to go? Okay, if it's not, then what do we need to change? And what's
Mm,
the best way to change that?
yeah.
And so, it took a lot of self study. It took a lot of reflection to finally say, okay, yeah, just because I knew what good looked like didn't mean that I knew what good looked like at that organization. And if I do not want to have those, quite frankly, embarrassments, if I do not want to have those spots on my resume, if I do not want to have those experiences in general, Maybe I should listen more. Maybe I should pay attention to the stuff that it's easy to overlook.
Mm.
And that's what informed this approach that I'm rolling with now.
I love that. Because what it says, Jeff, is you don't necessarily come into an organization with a predetermined, here's my methodology, and we're going to instill this methodology like they would in Sandler or Spin, or not to say they're
Sure.
bad, but they're good.
Yeah.
But you're basically looking at what's working right now. Let's do more of that, but also let's look at perhaps some things we might be able to tweak based on your market, based on your product set, based on your approach, based on the people we have, and how do we
Hmm.
leverage that more effectively. So it's literally customized every single time, which
Yep.
makes you a
And I,
very, very marketable, and I say this respectfully, marketable commodity in the marketplace because you don't profess to come and say, here's the Jeff methodology.
it's I trademarked "sell like you" um, 2 years ago, and you never sell better than when you sell like you. And I
Yeah.
have 7 steps, right? You know yourself, know your best customers. That's 1 and 2. That's inalienable, right? But then
Yeah.
you got to know your process, know your methods, and know your rules. That's what good looks like here,
Mm.
right? What do we do here? What are the steps that we need to take people through? What are the ways that we can accomplish those steps? And then what are our rules? What are our guiding principles, our values? And then the last two are be held accountable and keep your swagger, right? Because mindset's important. But
Yeah.
um, you know, walking the company through that, helping them define the thing that probably doesn't get defined very often, at least not written down,
Yeah.
and then, on the individual level, the integrity of selling something you believe in to people you're helping,
Mm.
in a certain way that aligns with your own value system, right? So we have sell like you from the corporate level and also at the individual level, because the integrity of those systems is vital to sustainability.
Oh,
So,
totally. Totally.
yeah, that's it's there's a lot there. But yeah, that's what I've been doing for companies. And um, what's nice is in these training engagements, I'm getting feedback from the veterans who would normally push back because
Yeah.
what does this guy know? He's never sold what we sell before.
Yeah.
But I get feedback from the veterans. They're like, "Oh, that's really good. I didn't think about it that way before." And then they start telling stories that are recorded and kept so you can onboard this nuance,
Mm.
right? That's really difficult to do. And then the new rep who was like me 21 years ago, coming in bright eyed, bushy tailed, with all the energy in the world, but no context for where to put it, or,
Yeah.
asking the established veterans on my team, okay, what do you do? So, I don't
Mm.
know. I just show up every day and I hit the route. I don't know what to tell you, Jeff, but hang in there.
Yeah.
Uh, I was a month away from changing careers.
Mm.
So how many salespeople out there could be ramped more quickly? How many could find the kind of life-changing perspective shift that I found
Mm. Mm.
if
It's
we could
powerful.
just codify what good looks like?
And that's what I love about it because it's what good looks like here. So
Mhm.
it's taking the, I guess, the experience, intellectual property, knowledge, all the stuff that's within the organization and capturing it to benefit the organization and those that they serve. It's
Mhm.
not something that's going to be lost, which is because when you see it, there's so many people that leave an organization, and when they leave, all the knowledge and IP goes with them, and there's no real way to capture that.
Have you been reading my website, Darren? Is that where you got that? Um, but I mean that's just it. It's you know it's trapped in the heads, and what you and I, for doing this as long as we have, we would call that instinct because we
Mm,
don't know how to explain it. So we'd call it instinct. It's not instinct. It's 10,000 sales calls.
that's right.
It's getting escorted out of an office. It's getting a door or a window shut off on you. It's getting, it's 100 cold calls without a pickup. It's a
Yeah.
0% response rate on an entire email sequence. It's how you pick your poison. It's whatever you want
Mm,
to refer to it as. But that's what makes up our instinct. It's 21 years of learned behavior.
yeah.
And no, we're not taking notes the whole time. It's like, so how do we
Brilliant.
get that out of the brains and into some sort of medium that it can actually be transferred?
Yeah, I love that. Love that. So Jeff, it's been a phenomenal conversation. I can't believe an hour's gone by already.
Oh, wow.
So I am conscious of your time, given that the time that it is over there. For people who want to know more about you, certainly know about the work you're doing and connect with you, where's the best place for them to do that?
LinkedIn is a great place. I mess around on Instagram and show pictures of my kids and what I'm cooking that day sometimes, but LinkedIn's probably the best social media platform to find me. I'm accessible there. So if
Yeah,
send me a message, tell me you found me on this podcast, and happy to, trade a few words with you. I love to connect with people. That's what I do. My website is just jeffbajorek.com, and I've actually put together a little assessment there too. So if you go to jeffbajorek.com/ESL for exceptional sales leader.
hmm
It'll take you to a free self-assessment of, how well do you know yourself and how well do you know your best customers? And
Brilliant.
it's really kind of an eye opener. It doesn't take longer than 10 minutes. It's 14 multiple choice questions.
Love it.
What it's doing is kind of starting this conversation of, are there some things that we could work on right now that would help us know those things better and would help that flywheel of, okay, repeat business and focused, energy and efforts.
Love it. Love it.
That's powerful.
Mate, it's been an absolute pleasure. I'll put all that on the show notes and thank you for that self-assessment. It's been too long between drinks. We'll have to do
Yeah,
this again. So
for
thanks so much
sure.
for being a guest on the podcast.
Oh, thanks for having me, Darren. This was great. That hour evaporated.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening to the Exceptional Sales Leader podcast. I trust the information in this episode has been helpful in your journey towards becoming exceptional. And remember, please take the time to rate the show, subscribe to the show so other people can find it. But also, if I can help you, jump on my calendar, go to leadwithdarren.com and let's have a conversation about how I can help you along your journey to being exceptional.